everyone, my name is Gigi Williams, and I want to thank Tina for inviting me to speak to you all today. I want to tell you about my life as a one-handed person. When I was born, half of my arm was just not there. The technical term is congenital, that means you're born that way, elbow, because it stops at the elbow, disarticulation. And the doctors could give no medical reason for this. It was just, as they said, one of those things. Well, it is important to look at the patient you're working with, your client, the family, and how people feel, because I want to tell you that when I was born, number 7 of 10 children, my parents were very upset that I only had one hand. There was no ultrasound back then for them to find out ahead of time that I would only have one hand. So you can only imagine how shocked they were. Well, my dad somehow believed that he must have done something wrong. You probably have heard of this before. My dad felt that since he had lived such a sinful, bad life in his younger days, that God was somehow punishing him. He had done a lot of things. Even as a married man, he was unfaithful to my mother. He had 5 children and just did so many things. He liked to party. But my mother stuck with him, and when my dad had a turnaround because of Christ coming into his life, my dad surrendered everything to God and was a changed man. Of course, I wasn't born to witness that, but I heard about it later. So when I was born, he just thought maybe God was punishing him for all of those things that he had done in his past. As the years went on, he came to realize that wasn't true, but that God had a bigger plan. And even today, at age 63, I can say that I'm thankful that God had a bigger plan. And I want to tell you a little bit more about my life. I remember I was about 3 years old when I realized I was different. I held up my hand and my little arm, and I looked, and I realized I was not like my brothers and sisters. They all had 2 hands and I only had 1. At that time, it didn't really bother me. It was just different. I got along fine. But as I got older, and I got a lot of attention because of having 1 hand, I began to hide. I would wear things to cover up my arm. I just didn't like the attention. I didn't like the way I was treated sometimes. But when I went to school and I was in the 1st grade, the school nurse talked to my parents about getting me a prosthesis. Now, Mom and Dad saw that I did everything so well with 1 hand, they really did not pursue the prosthetic route. But the school nurse convinced them that that's something they should look into. So they did. And here's the kind of prosthetic that I received. This is not my actual one. This is actually made for someone who has a right arm amputation. As you can see, if I can get this on. Well, I can't really put it on, but you can see it would fit that way. Excuse me for that noise. I moved my chair back. But anyway, this is like the one I wore. And it's very hard. It's a fiberglass material. It has the hook on the end. Not very attractive. Children in school often ask me to open the hook so they could put their finger in there to see if it hurt. And I always obliged. I was very shy, and I just went along with whatever people asked me to do. But when I got ready for school all day, first I put a little sock on this arm, and then I put my arm down in the socket. See, this is all backwards, but you get the picture. The straps went around my back, and this part went under my right arm, nice and padded and soft. And then I put my regular clothes on top. Well, when I wanted the elbow to move, up or down, the arm to move, there's a wire here, and I would pull my shoulder back in a certain way, and that will pull this wire, and it would lock the arm into place. That component's broken now, so I can't show you that. But when I wanted the hook to open, I tightened up my bicep muscles, and that pulled a different wire, which would open the hook. Okay, you can see that okay. And I wore this to school every day. My sister remembers a time when I was in the first grade that children encircled me on the playground and they were chanting, "Captain Hook, Captain Hook." And she ran to my rescue. I just stood there and she ran and the children scattered. But being called Captain Hook became a normal part of my life. And I didn't like it, of course. I didn't like being called Captain Hook because as a child I thought, I'm a girl and Captain Hook is a boy. I was offended. But that was what was going on in my life. And the older I got, the more I tried to hide my arm. You know, I really didn't use this arm real functionally. I could hold a piece of paper in there to use this hand to cut, but I could also do it equally well with my elbow. I could tie shoes using the prosthesis, but I also could tie shoes without it. And when I got home from school every day, this arm came off, just like you take your shoes off to get comfortable, and I went out to play. I really didn't need it. So when I was 12 years old, it was time to get a new arm. Just like you grow out of your shoes, I grew out of my arm. And I told my parents I didn't want to wear a prosthetic arm anymore. It was a real hard decision because I didn't have anyone to talk to about it that really understood. My parents were supportive with whatever I chose to do, but they didn't really understand because they both had two hands. So I made this tough decision as a 12-year-old not to wear the arm anymore. Let me tell you why I really decided. As a budding adolescent, I was thinking in the future of me with a boy. And I remember thinking, imagining myself on a date with a guy and him sitting in the driver's seat and me sitting next to him, not too close, of course, at the first date. And that prosthetic arm would be between us. And I remember thinking, ooh, that thing's ugly. He's not going to like that. He's not going to want me to get close to him. So I think it's interesting that I thought of all these things as a 12-year-old. When I went back to school, I asked my 6th grade teacher to make an announcement that I would not be wearing my prosthesis any longer. So she did that. And I was afraid of the kids' reaction. I thought they might make fun of me all over again, chase me like they used to. But that really didn't happen, and life went on. I grew up. I learned to do a lot of things with one hand. I learned to drive a car. In fact, people ask me, what can't you do because of having one hand? And I used to laughingly say, cartwheels. But I can actually, I've seen kids and people do cartwheels with one hand, but I can't do them. Anyway, as I grew up, I met a wonderful man. His name was Terry Williams. I guess you can figure since my last name is Williams, we got married. That was a very special time. In fact, I was only 17 when we got married. He was 22. In fact, Terry was one of Tina's patients. That's how I met Tina. And then Tina became my therapist when I later got a prosthetic arm. And I'm going to show you that now. Now, I went without a prosthesis from age 12 until about 60 years old. Well, that's a long time to go without a prosthesis. As I found, as time went on, because I do things bilaterally, I was leaning forward because this arm is so short. If I wanted to do the dishes, I had to really come in. And so I was constantly bending forward, and I noticed that my neck muscles were getting tight and sore, and my shoulder. So I started thinking about getting another prosthesis. And so here's what I got. It's quite beautiful. It doesn't look anything like the hook. It's soft up here. And I want to show you how I put this prosthesis on. It has a liner, and that fits over this arm. It's kind of tight, not too tight. Now, if you noticed, this prosthesis does not have straps on it because it has the silicone band around the top of the liner. And with this lining inside of the arm, it fits right on there very nicely. So I slide my arm in there and just push it down so it goes all the way in. And it has this little tab here. And what that could do is to lock this elbow into place. So let me do that. Okay, now, if it's locked, you can see that it's not falling down. It's not real functional, as you can imagine. These fingers, they can move some, but as far as thinking about your amazing hands and your fingers, what you can do, this is pretty stiff, and there's not a lot I can do with it. In fact, if I'm wearing it, there are things that I cannot do with it on. Like I wouldn't be able to do dishes with this on. And you have to be careful with the components not to get them wet and things like that. So basically, this is cosmetic. I'm going to move this camera back just a little bit. Maybe you can see a little better. And you can see that it does match the size of my real hand here. Now, I said in my church, we like to clap. And the first time I went to church wearing my new hand, I showed my friends how I could clap. That was pretty fun. So we're just singing and clapping. I'm just showing everyone all around. But anyway, I don't wear this on a regular basis at all. Mainly, I use this when I speak to classrooms or to church groups, wherever I go, and I like to show them. And I really appreciate the VA for getting this for me, and Tina's work, and the man who actually made the prosthesis, Jonas Seberg, did a great job. And there's a lot that goes into making an arm like this. There's so many considerations that I had never thought of. In fact, a funny story, when Jonas finally had my prosthesis ready and I got to go try it on, there was a big mirror. And I had this on, and I went before the mirror, and he kind of was wanting to check the fittings and everything. And I said, wait, I need to see what I look like with two hands. I had never seen myself with two hands. I pretended plenty of times, but I didn't know what I really looked like with two hands, and it was pretty exciting. So if I ever want to have two hands, I know where to go. But typically, at this stage of life, I'm very comfortable with who I am and how God created me to be. I'm comfortable. I still deal with some of the shoulder and neck issues, but that's not enough for me to pursue getting another prosthesis. Of course, there are a lot more technologically advanced prosthetic arms and hands that I could receive, but they're very expensive, and just having worn this cosmetic hand, I have decided that this is as far as I want to go with the prosthetics. So I've decided that I am content with the way I am. I'm going to slide this off. And I have actually been able to do a lot of good things in my life because I have one hand. There's a camp that's in Northeast Maryland. It's called North Bay. You may have heard of it. And every year around Labor Day, they have a camp for children, and it's called Camp No Limits. And they have events for children who are missing arms or legs. You know, when I went there and I saw these children, some of them with no arms, that were teaching other kids how to tie a shoe and getting on the ropes course with one leg and a prosthesis, I realized that my situation is very minimal. But this camp is every Labor Day. Hopefully they'll have it this year again. And all the things that kids are able to see, and they can see that there's other children like them. And that would have been very helpful to me growing up, if I had known there were other kids like me. I really didn't see anybody like me. Every once in a while I might see a person with a prosthetic hook, but it was usually an adult. But I think just having friendships and learning that there are other people out there like me would have been a real blessing to me. I have actually written a book about my life, and it's called God's Hand in My One, Looking Back at the Master's Plan. And I outline my whole story here of being born with one hand, how my parents felt when I was born, and my 9 brothers and sisters, and how siblings experience having someone in the family who's different from most other people. They were very protective and very good to me and kind, and my parents had a lot of wisdom in helping me deal with being different, especially my mother. When I was treated bad at school, I might come home and whine and cry, tell her what the kids had said that day. But she taught me a very important lesson. I think it's a good lesson for all of us, really, is that when you see someone who is an unhappy person, they're putting other people down, being critical, teasing, bullying, whatever you want to call it, that person is hurting inside. And when Mom taught me that, I actually remember feeling sorry for the kids who teased me. I think sometimes people can feel so angry and bitter about whatever their situation is that they just want to hide, and I've heard of that happening. They don't want to get around people because they realize it's too painful, and they don't want to stand out in the crowd like I always did, and I still do quite a bit, especially with children. But I'm actually an occupational therapist, forgot to say that earlier, and having one hand has been a real asset in my field because I've been able to help other therapists to say, oh, let's problem solve how to do things with one hand. And I've been able to show a lot of people who've had strokes that can only use one hand how they might do different activities of daily living and whatever it is they need to do. And I think a big part is just kind of feeling okay about who you are. And for me, not to hide anymore has been really a big thing. And I have actually found just being different, it's okay. It's okay. And I can actually help other people in whatever their struggles might be. I also, you might be interested, I have a YouTube channel, Gigi's One-Handed Ways. And I've had a lot of fun with this because I show how I do things with one hand. Like how I clip my own fingernails, how I polish my nails, how I tie a shoe, how I change a ceiling light bulb, which was a challenge, and lots of things that I've been able to do with one hand to adapt and figure out a new way of doing things. So I want to thank you all. I hope you've learned some things today, and if you want to reach out to me in any way, I would love to hear from you. You can ask questions, or if you want to check out my book, do that. But my website is really simple, gigiwilliams.info. So if you want to reach out, I'd love to hear from you, and let me know any questions or what thoughts that you might have about the things that I've said today. So I want to thank you all, and I just wish you all the best in your career. It's a needed career, and it's something that's growing, of course, as America's getting older. So I think you're doing a great thing, and just continue and persevere in what you're doing. Thank you, and God bless you all. Bye.